Due to recent great performances of our friends from the other side of the pond, and let's be real, also, even in Europe, there's a lot of teams that recently hit the news by questionable management rather than by being a great org. I'm going to make a quick video about how I think a League of Legends org should look in 2021. And obviously you can disagree with that, but hey, I don't fucking care. So I prepared a little bit in here in Paint already because drawing structures on time is shit. So obviously at the top you have your fucking owner, who in the end has the responsibility for every fucking thing in the game and outside of the game. Then he should have a content team, and the content team should also kinda be connected to the other stuff, but we'll come to that later. The content team, well, ideally you have one person who's an on-camera personality and a creative person who is doing everything they can to like capture fans, to make them invest into your org. Like, to be honest, if Team Liquid keeps Orvally for the next year, I think she has been the best signing Team Liquid has done in 2020. Not Jet, not Broxa, it's going to be Orvally. Her Worlds coverage was amazing. There were songs, there was everything. Daily. It's amazing content to get fans to buy into your org, to make them like you, to give your brand an identity, stuff like that. Really, really great. Obviously, I have no idea how NA let her go. It's a fucking riddle to me. I have no idea. And obviously that's the uninteresting thing. It's stuff like HR, legal, finance, you know. Oh, well. Stuff like that. I have no clue about that. I don't need any clue about that. But you gotta know it's still there. Then under that, it's a big box, but well, it's the GM. The GM is a position that's still to this day, I think, in many orgs implemented in a flawed way. On one hand, the GM is responsible for creating everything that's under him. And therefore, well, the only thing he has to answer to is the owner and ideally the fans, you know. But the GM should be the guy that creates the foundation, that creates an identity for the rest of the team, how they play, what their structure is going to be, what they're aspiring to, all that stuff. That's what the GM does. Like, if I was a GM, and God knows, I hope I will be one day, my main goal would be to make the team succeed. That would be my main goal, which is a very abstract goal, but that would definitely be my main goal, whatever it takes. If I have to drive my fucking player to the dentist at 8 o'clock in the morning, I'm gonna do it. I probably try to pawn it off to someone else, but if I have to do it, I'm gonna do it. Because my main goal is for the org to succeed. That's also why we have this line, because creating content that's interesting, that's captivating, that gets fans to cheer for you, that's in direct contact with what I just mentioned, with the identity, how your team plays. G2 also is doing a great job. Even if I don't think they have a really GM, but like Carlos, Perks are doing a lot of that by themselves. So your identity gets transported by this content team. Your content team creates the way the outside sees your brand. you can't understate that. It's also shit like all the people like LS, Thorin, they all got G2 jerseys now, the World's jersey. Why? Because it's good advertisement. Like sending them a shirt, what's that? 20 bucks, 30 bucks. And then they wear it on stream. They show it on stream. They got a jersey with the name. They're going to post to Twitter if you win, all the shit. That's how people get to like your brand. There's so many teams that have no fucking identity. I couldn't even tell you who's on Dignitas right now. Except Froggen, I think. And Huni, they paid him like millions of dollars, I think. Because they don't exist. They play their games, they lose their games most of the time, and you don't know anything about them. They're an empty shell of a team. It's incredible. Well, but back to the structure, you know. Me as a GM, I would need, I don't know how I would call that position, but I would need like a right hand. You can call it team manager, you could call it assistant. Is that how you write assistant? I don't know. Assistant GM, however you want to call it. It's someone on who I could pawn off stuff, like driving them to the dentist at 8 o'clock in the morning or something like that. Or, you know, if you're looking for places to create offices and flats for the players, whatever. Especially in EU, it's in Berlin, and well, I guess LA is the same. There would be too much choice. I'll be honest. I would hate to drive there and look at all that stuff. I could do so much more interesting stuff instead of, well, yeah. Looking at shit places that I won't even get back to ever. That would be something I tell my assistant, like, go out, do that, choose the best 2-3 ones, show me them, I'll tell you. Obviously, that would be also someone that basically gets groomed to replace the GM someday if it's necessary. Like, it's a little bit like Jon Snow on the Night's Watch, who was the steward to the Knight Commander. You're basically being groomed to someday replace the GM if necessary by doing everything he wants you to do. Learning by doing, basically. And like I mentioned, that would be someone that is my right hand. Literally. Almost like a button. Like they call it in the mob, I think. I tell you to do it, you do it. Don't question it. Well, you can question it, I'll explain it to you, but you're still going to do it. Then we're going to staff. I would always prefer to recruit my staff first, before I recruit players. But there could be special circumstances under which you can recruit players first. But those would be really, really special circumstances, like if Reckless was available, for example. Reckless would be, in my opinion, the #1 puzzle piece you could get. I'm not saying he's the best player you can get, but he would be the best puzzle piece. Because he's a tested veteran, he's a captain, he's a rock in-game, he's a good player, he has big brand value. You know, I could go on, but like, those are real exceptions. Otherwise, you should go with the staff first. And that's obviously a head coach. A head coach would be someone not necessarily a genius when it comes to strategy, pick and ban, to be honest. Because I would... how do I write it best? That would be the very least of a coaching staff structure that I would want. Because in a head coach, I'd look for someone that can actually lead a team, that has leadership qualities, that can motivate, that can run a team, basically. Like me as a GM, I would still be kind of involved, to be honest. I wouldn't try to do the head coach's job, but I would have input, which I would give the coaches outside of the players knowing, because then we'd get into TSM territory where you pull out the rug under the coaching staff if you override their decisions. You can do that, but then don't let the players know it. You have to do stuff like that behind closed doors. That's like one of the big things in leading people in the workplace. You criticize them behind closed doors. You appreciate them in front of everyone else. That's how you do it. That's actually real world workplace experience. Because I already led people in a workplace. I led a team of like about a dozen people, which would be quite similar to a League of Legends team structure. But hey, most people that are recruited out of the industry actually lack that skill or those skills. I feel like they have never had a real job, probably, or if they did, they didn't have a job where they actually were the boss of someone, and that's a skill that's really lacking, I feel like, in the scene. You even can combine these two roles, the head coach and the strategic coach, with two people who cover each other. Obviously, that's why I'd get this head coach and the strategic coach. The head coach is the guy that is the leader of the team, that gives them purpose, motivates them, etc., etc. And the strategic coach would be the guy that tells them, oh yeah, you should play that maybe into that, pick that, build that, play side lanes 1-3-1, whatever. The strategic guy. I'd also obviously have like at least one analyst that really, his main job would be to watch film and recognize patterns. Pattern recognition is the most important skill for an analyst. But to come back to the coaches, I could, for example, really, really imagine a duo out of something right now. Someone like Youngbuck would be someone I'd hire as my head coach, to be honest. I have no idea how he got to excel. This guy is doing wonders and should honestly have a choice in which team he's going to be coaching next year. Yamato Cannon is available. He would be another choice for my head coach, honestly, because I really like his very soft and well-spoken way. Like, I really like him, but those are both guys where I value a good strategic coach with them. Someone like, I don't know, LS would be a good example. I don't know if I would hire him, to be honest. He's not available anyway. He's making money with streaming and broadcasting right now. But I guess if I would hire LS, there's also the aspect if he could work with the other staff. There would be a huge part of it. But he would be hired mainly for his strategic input. I don't think he would do a great job at the personal level. I don't know him personally, obviously, but that's the feel I get. He can be pretty confrontational and stuff like that. But I think with Yamato Cannon, they could make a good duo. You'd have the soft voice, Yamato Cannon head coach. Yeah, you can do it. And on the other side, you have LS telling you how you lost to Boris because you built that and that. But you get what I mean. I would hire someone as a real leader person, and one person that's going to know the strategic side in and out. That's his main job. Other examples would be like Kelsey, I guess, Casey Moser, that is, or even Mithy. I honestly think Mithy's move to a head coach position was rushed. I think Mithy would have been a very good strategic coach. Other people that are coming up right now that I could imagine would be, there's a lot of people actually. Amazing is doing his first coaching steps. Cold has now started to coach Broxa in Team Liquid specifically as a positional coach, I think. Cadrill as well. But I wouldn't hire them as my main strategic coach right now, because we're getting there. That would be my staff. And obviously I didn't think of that when I drew those boxes beforehand, but someone that's doing food. Eating together is a pretty big thing. So it would have to be food that's prepared right there, or it would be easy to still be reheated and be a proper dinner, because I would really put a lot of value on my team and my staff, at least the on-site staff, to have proper dinner together. That's a big part. Yeah. So, but then we get to the first team, and the boxes are mainly now going over their initial purpose, because obviously that's going to be the team, the first team. And here, how would I plan on creating a team? Obviously, I would completely involve the coaching staff in my decisions there. I wouldn't base my decisions on what they want, but I would definitely involve them in the creation, because you don't want coaches that have to coach something that is completely opposed to whatever they want to do. But a very aggressive coach wouldn't want, like, I don't know, last year's Origin, this year's Origin, stuff like that wouldn't work. You gotta feel it out and have a real concept for everything. That's the main thing. That's the main thing, man. Everything has to make sense. It's one concept, it's one brand, it's one org. Everything is supposed to be one thing. But let's get back. Player-wise, you should look at what works. That's also why I think Youngbuck would be my number one signing for the head coach position, to be honest. Because he seems to be someone that is looking for working principles. I would compare him to someone like Mourinho in football, who seems to go a pretty similar route, with the added factor of him being a big shield towards the media, because he's Mourinho, But he seems to try to do what works, as opposed to like Guardiola, who seems to be more, I would compare him more to Mithy, who's trying to play a perfect game, They aspire to play a perfect kind of game. But to me, a perfect game is winning the game. It doesn't matter how. In football, I would say, as long as you score one goal more than your opponent, that's a perfect game. You don't need more. As long as you win, it's perfect. Perfect is what works. That's the number one goal. Your goal is to win. Your goal is not to kill minions, to kill your opponent, to kill their tower, to kill the Baron, to kill the dragons, to not die. Your goal is always to win, to make the Nexus explode. And these conditions, how you can reach them, that's your job. If your job is to fucking int into top lane as Sion and push the tower with your passive while you're dead, then that's your job. That if that gets you closer to winning the game, then that's your job and you should do that. If jumping in on the tank to get not one shot, to just die while the other 4 people in your team kill everyone, then you do that. That's the thing. But that's team philosophy already, and team philosophy is obviously another subject that you could talk about for hours, and that would start to bore you looking at paint. So I don't think I'm going to actually talk a lot about specific players or player roles, because a lot of that is dependent on who's available, obviously. But what you should do is obviously recruit players that fit together. Like, ideally, you should maybe recruit in pairs, actually. Like, you know, either bot support, ADC support, or support jungle, mid jungle, roles that have agency together. Those are roles where you at least should, if you recruit someone and they are part of those duos or bound roles, so to say, they should always have input into who you recruit for that other part of that duo, because they need to fit together. Obviously, not everyone knows what they want to play with, but they should have input. Same as the input of the coaching staff with actually recruiting the players. You don't need to listen to them, but you should have their input, because that's also then a big part of the final philosophy of the team, where there's always going to be a strong side and a weak side. Let's be real here. If you recruit a sick bot lane that's playing for lane kingdom, for kills, that obviously is going to need jungle cover, then that's going to mean the jungler is going to spend most of this time in the bottom side. That's also going to mean you won't get a jungler that's someone who covers. Like, really, Xmithy comes to mind first to me. You're going to need someone that covers the weakness that playstyle creates. He's going to hover between bot and mid. Ideally, in that case also, you're going to have a strong mid. So you can actually play bottom side most of the time. Now, what does this mean for top lane? That means you're going to need the saddest motherfucker on the earth who's going to play weak sides 9 out of 10 games. And, well, ideally, you have a player that could also play strong side, but we're not all G2. Because on G2, for example, nothing of this has any relevancy, because they, as far as I know, don't have a GM. Their owner is part of their content team. He does content with his whatever. Like, if you create a team like that, they don't have an academy team, as far as I know, everything. You don't have to do something like this. But this would be the structured approach how to do it, in my opinion. So, obviously, like I said, player recruitment can't be put on paper like this. It would be impossible without knowing the possibilities that even exist, who to create. Players. Let's say it like this. Now, you can, depending on who you recruit, if you recruit a lot of rookies or something like that, you could also actually recruit someone like I mentioned, Kadrill or Cold, people that make their first step into coaching, that could be positional coaches for your players. So they actually have a veteran that can take them by the hand, show them the ropes, what they have to do, how they can prepare better for something, you know, a positional coach. Then your academy team. Here, you should recruit people who are young, who have no LCS experience, except maybe one or maximum of 2 guys, which can actually be an upside. If these teams have actually a veteran that shows the young guys, you know, the ropes, gives leadership to the team. Something like that can work, but don't be NA Academy. Don't have teams that are full of LCS rejects, because that's wasted money, pretty much. They have to have an academy team, I think. I don't know. The EU has, right? Because that's one of the things Origin still has none, so they're probably going to be fined for that. Or if they even stay as Astralis, who knows? But if you have an academy team and you have no talent in that team, like, what? That doesn't make any sense. Whatever. But the academy team should have players. Well, I explained it. As I mentioned, you can have 1 or 2 veterans, which can even be an upside, but then you should recruit veterans that actually fulfill that role. Like, you shouldn't recruit someone just because he played a few years of pro play already, if he is someone that doesn't talk. That doesn't make sense either. It should be someone who can assume a leader role, who can be a role model to these players and everything else. But then, this academy team should have a coach. And probably an analyst as well, but that's why I wrote analysts up here. Every team should have at least 1 full-time analyst, I think. Or the professional ones, at least. This coach should honestly be someone who is good at teaching, which is also one of the roles I might even consider a third coach for the first team, which would be like, then you'd have a leader person, a strategic person, and a pedagogic, is that the word? I think so. Person, like someone who's really close to a teacher. And especially in the academy team, that's where it gets really important. Someone who can teach the players the basic pro concepts. That's what you should do in academy. Ideally, you'd have someone like, I don't know, Peter Dunn is available now, I think, who was part of the great Mad Lions Splice rosters in the past years. I don't know if he would be good at teaching or something, but he would be someone like that, where advanced principles of pro play get passed on to these players, where they can learn that, where they get prepared for their jump into the big leagues. That's where they get prepared. Academy, it's in the name. It's about teaching. Academy. That's where you get people to be ready for pro play someday, where you find the rough diamonds and cut them towards pro play. A lot of stuff I'm saying here seems impressively obvious, yet most of the teams don't follow it. They don't do it. I don't understand. Most people don't understand. It's very weird. But that's why I feel like I have to make this video. Then, something that most people have not done. Where's my mouse? There's my mouse. 3. The only org I know of that has something like that is 100 Thieves with 100 Thieves next. Papa Smithy doing a good GM job in that regard, and that is something where I would sign people that have no serious play experience so far. That means people that are not old enough to play it. That means people who simply have not played yet, you know. That would be Kitty's first league team, you know, from playing Clash. That's the next step. Then you would go to Academy. That's how I imagine that. And you wouldn't even need to limit it to 5 players. You would you can recruit everyone. And they should play everything they can. There are a lot of amateur leagues still like below the Prime League. Is it? Yeah, Prime League is the German league, I think, right? There are even like League 2, League 3. There's so much available. There's still tournaments under that get organized on Reddit or shit like that. That's where they should play. They should play everywhere as often as they can. If they can't, you ideally have someone else or who can play as well. Like, this is supposed to slowly work them into League of Legends professional play. They should also have a coach who they won't be living with the other people. Like, that's on site. That's external. They'll be at home, obviously they'll be going to school, have to work, whatever, because they won't be earning enough to make a living out of this, I'll be honest with you. And they shouldn't be. They get a few bucks if they play well. And as I mentioned, they are going to play online. They're going to be at home. They're going to have an online coach, but they should have a dedicated coach. Someone, that's also where you find coaching talent. That coach can change a lot. That coach, that's basically also my first coaching job. That's also where you put these people. If you have a little bit of confidence in them, they are going to coach that. And they are mostly, their job is going to be mostly trying to make them work together. That's going to be their main job. To form them, those talents into players. What I mentioned earlier, the number one goal is to destroy the enemy nexus. It's not to win your lane necessarily. It's always good if you win your lane, but that's not your main job. In that case, for the third team, their goal is not even necessary to win. Their goal is to improve. But obviously, if they improve, they should win. And winning is improving for them. But losing is also great. Which comes to my next point, which is these teams should be in pretty direct contact. Like, the academy team and the main team should at least live close to each other, depending on how exactly the situation, your living situation is going to turn out. But they are going to play pickup games with each other. They are going to scrim each other at least once a week. I think I would like to, honestly, after the weekend, you have maybe Monday, it was LEC, Monday is free, and then Tuesday, like the first scrim block, that's where I would like to have the first team scrim the LEC team, the academy team. As sadly, it's probably going to be like that, but what I mean is they are going to be the easy first game in the week, where you can also basically play whatever you want, because ideally it shouldn't have to be secret, because you're the same hog. Spoiler. And that's, you can even like switch players around between the teams. Nothing keeps you from that. It's all about, in that case, that scrim block is going to be a build-up for your main team, which is why I would like to have it in the, ideally, the very first scrim block in the week. But for the academy team, it's all about the development. And don't take it lightly. Have your coaches do real pick bans and secret picks, whatever. You can pick whatever because it's your sister team, basically. You remember when Korea had sister teams and they all had secret strats they tried against each other? Yeah, that shit is great. If nobody else knows your strats, because you were able to create them, because you played with your good academy team, well, who wouldn't like to have that? You can even swap players around. Move one or two players from team to team. Look how it meshes. Just to make them develop further. Development. Make everyone a bit better every day. you know? And, well, what I think the GM should do in this weird but beautiful drawing of a League of Legends team structure is giving this structure. He's like the guy that sets the rails for the train, you know? There's still going to be a conductor of the train. Where is my mouse again? The conductor of the train. Or like, there's going to be a pilot, a co-pilot, and like, I don't know, stewardess and passengers or whatever. But that's the guy in the tower who tells you where the fuck to fly. I think that's a pretty good explanation onto what the GM is doing. Not really, because he's also going to basically build the plane, but I guess you get my drift. As I mentioned, he's setting the rails, he's giving purpose, he's giving the structure, he's doing whatever needs to be done. For example, if your head coach and your strategic coach, for example, are pretty good guys, you know, who have a problem with like being maybe honest with players, or yeah, well, sometimes you have to be. If your coaching staff are very good guys who have problems with that, you as a GM should then be the one who assumes the bad guy role, which as the boss, so to say, shouldn't come easy to you, but that's part of your job. You could also, if you have a coaching staff that has no problem with being the bad guys and telling them to shut the fuck up, play that shit because I tell you so, because I know better, I'm your coach or something like that, then as a GM you could also assume the mantle of being the good guy that goes to the players. You know, he just wants you to improve and blah 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 blah. You get my drift again. But what this drawing, that's basically how I imagine, in short, obviously, how a League org should look in 2021. What's really missing, what I mentioned already also, is there's very few people that have real life work experience leading other people and also experience in esports. Those are two circles that barely touch for anyone inside the scene, I feel like. And well, I would be someone like that, so